In these times during COVID, when we're all sitting at home, it's sort of like a ray of light that we get to watch these amazing sessions when we can't all be together. It certainly brightens up my evenings.
आज पेंडेमिक में हम डिजिटली लिटरेचर फेस्टिवल कर रहे हैं और मुझे लगता है कि हमारे सामने श्रोता नहीं है, हम आपस में बात कर रहे हैं, लेकिन उस फील को, उस उमंग को महसूस कर सकते हैं कि हजारों लाखों लोग हमसे जुड़े हुए हैं, हमको सुन रहे हैं और कहीं ना कहीं कोई एक सार्थक हस्तक्षेप हो रहा है.
People who came online to view and listen to our incredible speakers from across the world, we were able to continue in our tradition of ensuring the free flow of knowledge and information.
On behalf of Namita Gokhale, William Dalrymple, Sanjoy Roy, and all of us at Teamwork Arts, I welcome you to the session of the Jaipur Literature Festival Online Series 2021. Today we present Mama Tandoori, Ernest Van Der Kwast in conversation with Zac O'Yeah, presented in partnership with the Cultural Relations Platform, Creative Europe, EU-NIC India, Embassy of Netherlands, and the delegation of the EU to India. A loving tribute by a son for his mother. Ernest Van Der Kwast's book, Mama Tandoori, brings together the author's multicultural household with its humour and eccentric Indo-Dutch union, painting a moving portrait of a family's aspirations and search for identity in the face of personal tragedy. The narrative surrounds Ernest's overbearing mother, her iron will, undying spirit, and talent for haggling. In conversation with author, translator, and musician Zac O'Yeah, he gives us an enduring glimpse into his family and the power of the rolling pin that held them all together. Ernest had his breakthrough with the novel Mama Tandoori in 2010, which went on to become a bestseller in both the Netherlands and Italy. He's also the author of Sometimes Things Are Better When People Applaud, The Ice Cream Makers, and Giovanna's Navel. His most recent book is Ilyas. His playful eccentricities, marked by wit and satire, pulse through his writings that masterfully evoke raw undertones of emotion. His fluid, sensual style has charmed critics everywhere. Ernest is also active as an interviewer and columnist, and since 2016 as a volunteer counselor for disadvantaged youth in Rotterdam. Zac O'Yeah is best known as the author of the Majestic trilogy of novels comprising of Mr. Majestic, Hari, A Hero for Hire, and Tropical Detective, which are set in Bengaluru where he lives. Since his debut in 1995, he's published 19 books, including several fiction and non-fiction bestsellers, as well as contributing quirky stories to nearly 100 newspapers and magazines the world over. His writings have been translated into more than 20 languages, included in numerous anthologies, such as the Best Asian Travel Writing 2020, and also shortlisted for literary honors such as the Top Swedish Award, the August Prize for the Best Non-Fiction Book of 2008. He has worked in the pop music business and in theatrical arts as a performer, manager, scriptwriter, and composer. His next book, the first volume of his spectacular memoirs, will be out later this year. All our sessions that have been broadcast till now have been archived on our website in the Mughal Tent venue and are also available to view on our Facebook and YouTube channels. Ladies and gentlemen, we now present Mama Tandoori, Ernest Van Der Kwast, in conversation with Zac O'Yeah, presented in partnership with the Cultural Relations Platform, Creative Europe, EU-NIC India, Embassy of Netherlands, and the delegation of the EU to India. Over to you, Zac.
Thank you, Kritika. Can you hear me? Am I audible? Oh, great. So, hi, Ernest. Welcome to India, the country where you were born. I'm actually sitting in India, approximately here on the map in Bengaluru, if you can see it on your screen. So I wanted to start by asking you actually, since we are not actually physically together on stage, and I always feel a bit lost in cyberspace, where exactly are you right now? And what is this room that is? Is it your study where you write all your masterpieces?
Hello, Zac. Good to hear you. I'm in Rotterdam at the moment. I'm in my own house, and I'm now in the living room / kitchen. It's not the place where I work. I have a spot in the attic upstairs, and I have a working place as well in the city somewhere. But because of my family already left to Italy to have holiday, and I'm working one more week.
Right.
So that's why I'm here downstairs, where the coffee machine is nearby.
Oh, so you need coffee to do your writing. That's a very good sign.
For everything.
Yeah. Okay, so you write upstairs from where we are seeing you right now, all your books. And your book is a lot about your mother. So is your mom there anywhere in this kitchen, like around where you are?
I don't hope so. I hope I'm lonely at home. Now, my mother lives in Canada, in Toronto, with my father. They moved, I think, in 2008, something like that, because of the work of my father. And she really likes it. I visit them once in Toronto, and without Corona, they come every now and then to Europe, and then we see each other. But now it has been a while.
Okay. But do you think, because your book is a lot about your mother, do you think she's watching us right now?
I suppose so. Yes, I sent her the link, and she warned me.
Rolling pin.
To talk good about her.
Okay.
Also, questions, false questions are not can have their consequences for you.
For me, yes, I have.
You won't be the first interviewer that will be murdered by my mother.
Okay. And in this kitchen that you're inside, is there a tandoori there? Because your book has that tandoori in the title.
I don't have a tandoori clay oven, but I have a rolling pin. I like to cook. I have some Indian cooking books as well, but it's very difficult with an Indian mother to try to, because everything you try, it turns out to be not as good as you tasted it in your youth or with your aunties or everything. So I like Indian food, but I think I'm not. You need to the ingredients, the spices and everything, and this thing I try to collect, but I don't have the whole collection like my mother and my aunties do.
Yeah, and they also have to be very fresh, the spices, no? Like the powders that you get in Europe are probably not as good as
in India.
Yeah. So before we actually go on to discuss your book in depth, there's one particular question I would like to ask personally, because India, to me, is a very special country, and probably to you also. And I've loved it since I first came here 30 years ago. And I've almost become an Indian, or that is what my friends often tell me, that, oh, you're more Indian than we are. No? And but you were born in Bombay at that time. In Bombay, they have these taxis that look like this. You remember them?
I don't remember the taxis that good.
But and then for most of your growing up time, you did not come to India. And then as a grown-up, you traveled to India in your 20s or something like that, if I understand correctly.
I think I've been in India maybe 7 or 8 times or something. So I've been born there, and I went back with my family in my youth. And the last time I visited India was 2010, and there's a trip on schedule with my mom. I want to go back there.
So can you tell us something about how it feels to come to India as being somebody with deep roots in India, and then you've grown up abroad, and then you're visiting the country where you sort of half originated at least. And then I mean, what are the emotions and experiences that
it feels really good to be in India. I like the crowds. I'm not afraid of so many people because it's different in Europe or in at least in the Netherlands. We are a crowded country, but you can't compare it with Delhi or other huge cities in India. So these are complete different skills and masses. And I like to travel with buses and to be with people around. My family, when I visit my family, they don't understand me. They want to put me in a car with a driver, and so someone takes care of me, and they're afraid something happens to me or that I get lost. But I like to travel on my own, and often I ask people there, some guides, to take me around, but I never feel unsafe, and I really like Indian people. They look like they are like my mom. Sometimes I exaggerate, or you know how Indians are, but in general they're really kind.
Yeah, but in your book,
sorry, there's one thing that I regret is that I can't speak my mother tongue. My mother tongue is Punjabi. And my mom only spoke Punjabi when she was angry, so I can swear in Punjabi and Hindi. So to use really harsh words, but I have to speak English in India, and of course a lot of people can speak in English. But if you're with family and when they talk with each other, they speak Hindi or Punjabi or whatever, and so you don't feel included with them, and that can be a pity. And sometimes I think when my mother would have learned me Punjabi and Hindi, there would have been really a huge advantage or enrichment for my writing as well, because now I can only read and write and think and dream in Dutch. And how beautiful would it have been, especially for me as a writer, to have a second language, and how beautiful is it when a second language can be Punjabi, something that's so far away. Of course, my girlfriend is from Italy, and I speak a little bit Italian, I speak German, I speak English, but these are languages from cultures that are really close, and that you can. A lot of books are translated, and it comes, but so far away as India. I would, I think I would have been granted the Nobel Prize of Literature, not now, but in 30 years, if I would have learned Punjabi. So it's all my mother in the end.
But I can talk to my friends in Sweden, no, if they can get you that Nobel Prize. We send you the application form, and you can just fill in. But
yeah, you should send my mom as well too, because she can make a bit of
the peace prize. I think she'll get the Nobel Prize for peace, and you'll get for literature.
I think she will get all prizes. She will be haggling and ask for if to get this prize, I want this prize with it.
So that's
the first Indian woman who collects 5 Nobel Prizes.
That will be like top class. So in your book, there's at least in the English translation that I've read, at some point you talk about like when you first come to India as a grown-up. In the English it says something like, "It's my first impression of India, and suddenly I'm overcome with fear of the country, the people I don't know, and the language I don't speak. What am I doing here? What am I hoping to find?" I thought that was a very beautiful reaction from your side when you're landing in India. But then to lead to the next question, it's a very brave of you to write this kind of book about your mother, because I mean, she seems to be a person who is a little bit complicated, And like I suppose like if he would wear a mask, he would wear it this way, not like that way, not like this, but like that, because I mean then she can shout more at you in those nice Punjabi words that she has taught you. But in the book, you also write that again from the English translation. I don't know if it's the same in that. I reckon that people whose paths crossed my mother's, they're bound to conclude they had taken a wrong turn somewhere. And that is like, to me, it suggests something karmic, you know, karma, like the people who encountered your mother, it was maybe their karma to meet her, like in your father's karma. So do you think that the way she migrated to Europe as a young lady and met your father in Netherlands and became your mother ultimately, I mean, do you think like one can view it in karmic terms somehow?
I'm not a karma expert, but I think I believe that I think we are all the products of our parents, that we look like them. I think I look more than I resemble my mother more than I sometimes think, and I can be tough as well. I can be difficult or being a perfectionist, and I think it has to do a lot. Her behavior is that if you're used to some cultural codes and the way you're being brought up by your parents in a country, and you move to another country and everything is different, and so you lose a lot of control. And I think my mom likes to be in control. And if you go to another country and everything is different, then the only thing to regain this control is to be stronger and to shout and to react quite strong. And that's what I'm describing in my book, and that's this passage you've referred to is about. That if she goes to a shop and she wants to buy a bed, for example, she doesn't want to pay the price that the Dutch bed seller asks for it, and she's going to put the price lower and lower. And if the seller doesn't agree with it, she decides to stay in the shop, and she stays in the shop for hours, and she might sleep in the bed. I don't know if it's a karma thing, but it's something like, yes, probably she's used to the things in India, and those rules don't apply to here, but she doesn't agree with that.
But maybe also, do you think I can imagine that Europe somehow needed somebody like your mother to come there and show the Europeans that there is not only like the European way of looking at things, but one can also look at things in a different way, like your mother looks at all these European situations.
I really like the way my mom acts and tries to because the Dutch can be a bit stiff.
That's what I mean.
A bit wooden almost, like the old shoes they used to wear, the farmers, and I think it's something like, it's exotic, of course, and I can imagine that a bald white Dutch man like my father fell in love with this completely exotic and thinking the other way woman, and yes, but as a child these things can be quite difficult because as a child, when you're young, the only thing you want from your parents that they behave normal or behave like anyone else, like the neighbors' parents, and that was not the case with my mom. She was like a storm through my youth, and sometimes I could laugh and sometimes I could cry, and I think these two things are in a novel competing with each other.
So just now you said the word novel, right? And I was thinking about that as I was reading your book, like how to slot a book like this, because on the one hand, it's like very much like an autobiography or very much like a biography of your mother and
A
various other
memoir about
relatives.
the youth, yes.
But also it has that feeling that, oh, you're reading a novel, like a fiction. But the people have real names, like your name is Ernest in the book. You haven't changed. So how would you slot it? You call it a novel, but is it like really
It is a novel.
complete?
It is a novel. But it is a novel. It is autobiographical. But I think my most important instrument is imagination. I like to make up things because if I would have written the story about my youth, about my mother, the way it was, I don't think it would have been such a good book. I like my youth, I like my mother, but it needed some ingredients, and some chapters have not taken place at all. So everything is made up. But I think in the end it could have happened, and so it is fiction, but it's not completely made up or something. And I like, because I'm a fiction writer, I always like to have this freedom to invent things, to render it, and to add humor or a tragic when I think the story needs it. I would not. I couldn't have written the book as a non-fiction book. I think that wouldn't be interesting enough for me to write it.
Yeah, because I mean, occasionally it seems so real, and occasionally it seems it's so too fascinating to feel entirely, like possible that something like would happen. But like, for example, the rolling pin, which is very important part of the book. So your mother keeps breaking rolling pins over the heads of various people throughout the book, and is the rolling pins to be seen metaphorically, or is it an actual thing? That did she actually hit you on the head?
No, she used her shoes often.
Shoes,
Shoes, yes. She throw her morning shoes, but
those are softer. Yes.
Yeah, this is soft, but it would have been not strong enough, and I think it is used metaphorically. So it is something like a weapon, but also something to show the lack of power. She needs something very strong to regain the control, the things she all had in India and she has lost in the Netherlands. And I think it makes her a bit like a caricature, I say in English.
Caricature, yeah.
So it can make you laugh at a reader, but it can makes you also wonder, why is he reacting like this? And I think it's this thing that you say, sometimes you believe what happens, and sometimes you wonder, is this really happening? And that's the question I get most asked. What percentage is true of your novel? I never answer, and my mom says 2% is true or something, but I might say 98% then as an answer.
Yeah. Because I mean, this rolling pin is I borrowed it from my wife just today for the program, and my wife is Indian, by the way. And she was telling me that a rolling pin is kind of a very symbolic thing in India. Sometimes it's viewed as the woman, being trapped in the kitchen and that whole thing. And at the same time, like in your book, it's one of those weapons that a woman can use when she feels, oppressed by her husband or something like that. But your father doesn't seem very oppressive. He seems like a very gentle fellow who often gets the rolling pin for no.
He seems oppressed himself in the book, I would say. No, he's in my youth. So let's split the novel and my youth. Those are two different things, I would say. my mother was completely in control, and I have a very kind father, and I have a lovely mother as well. And he was at peace if he could read the newspaper, if he could do research, because he's a pathologist doing prostate and bladder cancer research. But when he took his work at home, my mom could get angry because she said, "You worked your whole week, and now you're at home in the weekend, and I want you to make time to spend it with the children, so that I can relax a little bit." But my father, he's really a workaholic, or likes to do what he does, and so he escaped into the loo, into the toilet. And he was reading his articles about prostate cancer there secretly. And my mom, of course, she wasn't stupid, so she knew he was hiding and reading, and that led through hilarious scenes for us as children. That my mother knocked on the door, and my father had to get out, and she was checking his clothes whether he had an article on him, and eventually she found the article, and she tore it and flushed it to the toilet. So I would say that my father would have won the Nobel Prize of Medicine if my mother would let him read on the toilet. So a lot of Nobel Prizes are lost in her hands.
Yeah. And also your mother, she comes from like a quite interesting family in India. Not, I mean, your uncle was a cinema hero, or he was working in Bombay cinema, and a quite respected actor. And for me, as a movie buff, I watch a lot of Indian cinema. So that was a very fascinating part of the book, how you described your uncle and his career. He came from a small village, and then he traveled to Bombay and to become a fairly recognized movie star. And then even in the book, you write that he passed away during a performance in London of Indian cinema numbers and all. So is that a true story?
Partly it is, partly yes. He was Uncle Sharma. I met him several times, and the last time it was in Rotterdam. I seen him, and we watched a movie together, and it was Indiana Jones and the Temple of Doom, I think, which is shot in Sri Lanka. But they wanted to shoot it in India, but the government read the scenario and didn't agree with it. And he was a strong man, and he was typecasted for roles like superintendent. So it weren't big roles, but he was always the guy who solved things, and he was really respected for it in the family. But when I asked them, I started to, because I wanted to write about him and send letters to his children and cousin brothers. But I didn't get really answers. If you ask an Indian for something, they often send you something else that they find important to write about. But I wanted to write about him, but I didn't get the answers. So then I was a bit stuck. But then after a while, I thought, why do I get stuck in this story? And then I treated it like the rest of the novel, that I if I don't have the answers or don't get to the next station where I want to go, use your imagination. So as well in this story, it's made up. It exists as well of parts that are true.
Yeah, because you also referenced IMDb movie database, references to your uncle and all that. So
I've seen movies with him as well.
Yeah, he's an absolutely beautiful character. So this book is not only about your mother, but and even your Dutch uncle seems to be a fascinating character. The one who traveled to Canada and he became a millionaire. then he lost all his money, and that whole fascinating story of his, where you also indicate once in a while that you don't know exactly what happened, but let us say that something like this happened. So even that could have been a novel on its own, but you included it in this story.
Yeah, I think that the two stories about the uncles, one an actor, an artist in a way, and one an uncle that fled away from the Netherlands because his parents wanted him to go to this school to get such a job, etc. And he didn't suit in it. And I think both are an example, or that I mirror myself in the book. That because my mother, an Indian mother in Europe, she wanted me to become a doctor, of course.
Yes.
Or if I didn't want to become a doctor, a lawyer or something. And eventually I went to the university and studied economics, but I didn't get happy of it. And I asked, I told it to my mother, and there was no mercy. She said, no, just finish your study and become an economist and etc. But I already fell in love with literature on school, on high school in the Netherlands. And this, I think these two characters, becoming an actor and dreaming of it, becoming from a small village, and the other uncle going into the world without a fear, I think they help me become a writer, because it's also a path that's not secure. If you want security in your life, don't become a writer. Go get a job in a supermarket or something.
Right. Yeah, and even when you were applying for your Indian visa, I think you mentioned that the embassy recommended that you should not call yourself a writer, but and then you call yourself a doctor Indian, no? Isn't it?
Yeah, it's the first time I agreed with because I applied for a visa, and then you have to write down your occupation, your job, and so I wrote down writer, and then I gave the form to them back and said, if you want to have your visa in these coming 10 days, you should write something else, because they don't. Then they think, oh, is he a writer? Is he a journalist? Will we write about the country? Will we write about bad things or whatever? And so I then thought, okay, then I become for one day what my mother hoped for me to become, which is a doctor.
So your mother must have been happy at that time. The one thing I was wondering about a little bit, like, I mean, I don't usually ask when I interview writers about the title of the book, because that's always a stupid question. But your book is called Mama Tandoori, at least in the English edition. But there's no tandoori oven in the book, really, except like once when your mother tries to ritually sacrifice some dogs in your backyard, and the police come, and she offers them some tandoori chicken leftovers, and the police leave happily. So was this your idea of a title to call it Mama Tandoori? Because as we have mentioned, it's also about your uncles and many, you know,
I think the
family at large.
The leading
So
character,
what was your idea?
Yeah, the leading character is my mother, and the original title was Mother India or something, that Mama India. It wasn't strong enough, and it had to be also a bit of something like comedy in it, because it's comedy as well, the novel. It's tragic, but there's a lot of comedy in it, and it was my publisher, I think, who came up with the title, because it sounded good, Mama Tandoori. You immediately know it's about my mother and it's about India, which are two forces in the book. And my mom made often chicken in her oven with the spices, with the tandoori spices, but the oven was of course not I think what is it, 300 or 400 degrees Celsius. But it's, the whole house smelled like it. As children, we were not allowed to watch television during the day because of the electricity. My mom is very miserly, or was very miserly, and that has the roots in her youth, because she came from a family that had to flew from Pakistan at the moment. So her youth was really with a lot of poverty, and so as children we weren't allowed to put on the television on. We weren't allowed to put on the lights on. It was kind of strange in our house. But when she made she made the chicken in the oven with 3 boys, we sat before the oven because we could see in through it. It was made of glass. It was our television a little bit, and that's one of the scenes in the book. And I think my publisher liked the scene and thought of, okay, then it's about tandoori as well, or tandoori is about flavor and about scents from a country that my mom descends from.
Right. Yeah. So now we're actually getting some audience questions here. So, and one of them is more or less the same question which I was going to ask, because, you know, being like almost Indian myself, I often laughed a lot when I read your book. And then occasionally I also was feeling that, you know, a little bit angry, like how can we write like this, you know? But and even some of your relatives were saying, no, your aunt Jasleen apparently told you that if you write about me, I'll kill you, and then you wrote about her. So, but obviously she has not killed you so far. And so
Auntie Jasleen is really a beautiful. She died a couple of years ago, but she was really a beautiful woman, and I liked it to be in our house at Ghaziabad. It was nearby Delhi, and she I think when she said, "If you write about me, I will kill you," it's the same, and she said it to me. She said on because I stayed at her house for some days, and I was working on my book, and she came into my room and sat on the bed, and I asked, "Auntie, what are you doing?" And she said, "I'm watching my son writing." And I said, I can't write when you're watching. Yeah, but I like it. And she said son to me because she didn't have any children. And then she stood up and she said, if you're going to write about me, I'm going to kill you. And of course it was with humor. And I think this kind of humor that's also in my mother, that's the whole book about. So I think I don't do anything against them. It's more amongst them.
Yeah,
with their kind of humor.
And then, so one of the listeners called Kiara, she wants to know, what was your mother's reaction after reading the book?
I think Mama Tandoori is not a book that you phone your parents when it's published and you say there's a new novel of mine in the bookshop. So I was writing it in Italy when I lived there. And I remember it was summer, and we often phoned each other through Skype, so we could talk with each other. They lived in, I think it was the Netherlands at the time, and I lived in Italy, and then I sent them the first chapter and in Dutch, and my father read it through her, and she was really angry, and she said it was only the first chapter, and she was angry because she said, you're making up a lot of things and people will think it's true, so they will think I'm crazy. And then I explained, no, it will be a novel, it will be, and at the second, after a month or two, I sent the second chapter, and she was really angry with my father because her Dutch is not good enough to read my work. So my father read the book in bed through her, but because of he had to laugh all the time, she got really angry with my father because she said, you can't laugh at these sentences, these jokes. But at the third or fourth chapter, which is about my eldest brother who is disabled, mentally disabled, who is a lovely brother. And I wrote about him, and when my father read this chapter in bed, my mother cried, and I think then she she engaged with the novel and could see what literature can do, because normally she was really against my writing. She wanted me to become an economist, and she really thought I was throwing away my life by becoming a writer or dreaming about it. And at that moment, I think something changed, and she phoned me and sent. Gave me tips. She said, "Could you write about your uncle as well, or could you write about this in our family?" And so she helped me writing the book in the end. Although, as a real Indian, she kept giving me tips, and at the end I had to say, "If you want all these stories, write your own book." I said to her.
Right.
And then she threatened, "I will write my own book. It will be about you."
Oh, that's nice. That's a nice thought. So we have a few more minutes left of time, and so another listener called Treya asked if, like, if you look at not only Mama Tandoori but your other books, is there like a common theme or undertone running through the books? Like if you look at, is this like a larger project you say in your writing?
I think the last 3-4 books are about people who have difficulties to become who they are, and I think this is a theme that haunted me a long time. When the Ice Cream Makers, a novel which was published in 2015. And it's about two brothers that are Italians that make ice cream. And one of the brothers doesn't want to become an ice cream maker, but he has to because it's a family business. And he tries to get away from it. And he tries, and he falls in love with literature, with poetry, and becomes an editor of a magazine, and then a director of a festival. And when the book was published in China, the Chinese translation, I thought, why are Chinese want to read a book written by a Dutch writer about Italians, which is about ice cream? But all the reviews on the Chinese Amazon are rated quite high, and they say this book is about us, because it is about the difficulty of becoming who you are, and about fighting against expectations about what your family wants, about the society. And in China, it's very difficult. If you dream of something, the government decides what you're going to study. You don't have any will or free will to decide.
Right.
And when they read this book, they recognized everything and they thought, this is about us, this story. And I think I projected my difficulty with my mother more in the Ice Cream Makers than in Mama Tandoori, because it was a real struggle for me to free myself from her will or her expectations. And I think now she's happy with my choice, although she might dream sometimes in the night of me becoming an economist or something, or a doctor in some dreams.
That you can always put on your visa applications when you want to come. So we have time for maybe one more last question. A listener called Ria asks regarding this pandemic, like what are you working on now, and has the pandemic somehow altered your writing or affected your writing in any way?
I finished my last novel during the first lockdown in the Netherlands. It was March 2020. It was, and first it was really strange because you're at the last part of your novel, and everything around you seems more important, and you're not reacting with your novel on the situation. So that was a bit strange for me, because I like to react in my novels about the world. It doesn't have to be on the news. But it has to engage with it, and I ask myself questions in my novels. I don't say I find the answers, but I want to react on the world we live in, and so that was kind of strange, because I was in a completely different world, or the world was completely different. It gave me more time because I'm a presenter as well, and I make programs. So, and these kind of things in the first lockdown weren't already online, so we couldn't receive an audience, and we didn't publish anything. So I got more time, but it took me a lot of time to give myself the feeling that what I write is important enough. So as a writer, you always want to believe in the work you create, and the belief was for a while was away.
Yes. So that sounds like a really good, nice last words, not your last words in life, but last words in this session. And I've been informed that our time is out, but it's been lovely talking to you. And I hope to meet you in real life at some point if you come to India. Now I'll hand over to Kritika. I think she wants to say something very important.
Thank you, Ernest. Thank you, Zac, for that extremely enjoyable conversation. I hope your mom was watching. Thank you all for watching and being a great audience. And we hope you will join us next week on the 23rd of July with the book launch of Uprising, Nick Lowe in Conversation with David Pine on JLF First Edition at 7 p.m. IST, and The Sweet Indifference of the World, Peter Stam in Conversation with Anjum Hassan on Jaipur Literature Festival online series at 8:30 p.m. IST. Look forward to seeing you all then.
In these times during COVID, when we're all sitting at home, it's sort of like a ray of light that we get to watch these amazing sessions when we can't all be together. It certainly brightens up my evenings.
आज पेंडेमिक में हम डिजिटली जयपुर लिटरेचर फेस्टिवल कर रहे हैं, और मुझे लगता है कि हमारे सामने श्रोता नहीं है, हम आपस में बात कर रहे हैं, लेकिन उस फील को, उस उमंग को महसूस कर सकते हैं कि हजारों लाखों लोग हमसे जुड़े हुए हैं, हमको सुन रहे हैं, और कहीं ना कहीं कोई एक सार्थक हस्तक्षेप हो रहा है.
People who came online to view and listen to our incredible speakers from across the world, we were able to continue in our tradition of ensuring the free flow of knowledge and information.